felt like was not okay.
Well, that was the first day.
We Marshall made him into Georgia and Atlanta to go look at some commercial spots.
So here we go again about the Atlanta. Like, God.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. It's your girl AlleyBenz here, and we are here with another episode of Love and Marriage Huntsville. This is season 10, episode 5. We're going to review it and we're going to recap. But before we get into that, don't forget to like and subscribe, and also comment and share this video with everybody that you can. So we start the video off at Lance's house because Nell came over to see how he was doing with the new baby and everything. Lance is talking about how even though he has 3 kids, this new baby is the first time he's ever been like a full-time, super hands-on, only parent when it comes to raising the child. And he's having a little bit of difficulty with it. And so at the beginning of the baby's life, he was staying with his parents, but now he feels like he was ready to move back to his house, but he's still struggling a little bit. And so Nell wants to come over and see if she could help him, things like that. Mind you, I feel like there's only like 3 jobs in Huntsville. You can either do real estate, own a construction company, or own a restaurant. Or I guess be credit score lawyer. Because everybody in their circle, I guess it's why they all so cool, because legit everybody in their circle either do real estate or own a construction company. So Lance is struggling with the baby, right? And Nell suggests maybe that she could come and stay with him for like 2 days on and help him out a little bit. And so Lance is like, I would love that. I feel like the baby is too attached to me right now, so maybe that could help, maybe it won't. But I feel like you should talk to dad first. Mind you, Lance calls Fletcher dad. Have we ever heard Jalen call Maurice dad? Exactly. And anyways, Lance is like, you should talk to dad first. And Nels is just like, well, I'm old and I'm grown and he's old and he grown. Why we can't go and help our kids out for 2 nights out the week? Like, that don't really seem impossible. Which I get what she's saying, because it's just like, I know y'all is not all up under each other every day of the week. Nell is basically saying Fletcher can just put up or shut up, because I'm finna help you, you my son, and he your daddy, so he should be able to get with it. And Lance is like, my mom is always saying she been married to my dad for 30 some odd years and he better get with the program. And in her eyes, the program is her. And I love that, because that totally gives their dynamic. Like, Chris Fletcher legit he goes with whatever Nell wants. And I love that for them, because you don't see that with none of these other couples. And Nell's just like, man, we've been together for 30 years. We done been through all this stuff. Here they go being transparent again. She talks about their infidelity. She talks about their finances. Like, wasn't it last season when they had brought out the daughter, Lexi, and they was going into all their family business and family drama? You can't really get more transparent than the fact that your stepdaughter don't treat you like that. So I'm trying to figure out how they not being transparent. So they bring up Destiny, and I ain't gonna lie, I did not miss her the last episode. Like, was not checking for Destiny. Honestly, we could have left Martell out the episode as well, but here we are. Nell is like, Destiny called her and said, you could have told me. And Nell's just looking like, what are you talking about? And Destiny's like, yeah, you could have told me that Lance was having a baby. And Nell's like, I don't have to tell you nothing. I don't owe you anything. Why? My question is, why does Nell have to be the one to announce Lance's baby when Lance done been on this show plenty of times? Why is Nell the one that has to answer for the fact that Lance had a baby? I really don't understand that. And Nell's just like, last time I checked, when it came to Destiny and Lance, Destiny was saying, we're just dating. We're not serious. We're not a couple. We're dating. I'm going on dates. To me, that don't sound like a relationship. That don't sound like something that Destiny should really be pressed over. Like, personally, for me, if a guy has a baby on me and we're dating, that's it. Like, I'm not finna keep going back and forth like, oh, I feel slighted. Oh, I feel this. Oh, I feel that. I'm just gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna cut you off like you cut that umbilical cord. Like, it's over. That's it. Like, I really don't see why Destiny's so pressed about this situation, when legit the last few episodes of the season and the reunion, Destiny was like, we're just dating. It's nothing serious. I'm living my life. I'm free bird. Like, So I'm confused why we're still even going back and forth with this whole Lance situation, because I could have sworn Destiny said it's not serious, we're just dating. I'm also looking at the stripper from the bachelorette party as well as Lance's godbrother. Even Nell is like, Destiny, who got all these guys in her life, like she that pressed over a man with a baby, it just don't sound right. And so Nell asks him, do you feel like you owe her a conversation or explanation, etc? And he's like, maybe not an explanation, but I could give her a conversation. We could have a sit down. A conversation is an explanation because you're going to be talking and explaining your reasonings, right? So Lance just lays it all out on the table and says, she thinks I'm attractive, I think she's attractive, but there was really nothing more to that except a couple dates. At the end of the day, I don't really see why she's so pressed, and she played in my face. And I agree. We get to the tiresome three. Honestly, nobody cares about them, but here we are in the scene with all three of them, right? Tisha mentions how Marceau is never home and that he basically lives at Black. She says he works there, he comes home, eats, showers, and goes back to Black. He sleep at Black? So y'all are still low-key living separately? Basically because he's always at Black, just like Maurice is always at Credit One. Why y'all husbands never at home with y'all? In walks Dreadful Destiny, and they're like, dang girl, where you been? We ain't seen you since LA. That's because y'all not friends, first of all. Second, they mention how Destiny did a TikTok live trying to be like Mel and Stormy, and she's selling products because she can't sell them in her store or online, so she had to do it on TikTok live. What the hell was Destiny wearing in her confessional? That ain't no sit down look. I'm sorry. That just was dreadful, Destiny. It didn't hit the way you thought it would. And Destiny usually has some pretty decent looks. Now, whenever she wears that blonde wig, I can't see it for her, but she usually has, like, honestly, some of the best looks of the show outside of Mel. What the was that she had on in that confessional? So they mentioned how at the dinner, Nell was asking Tisha about the whole podcast that Martell did with the mistress and the light-skinned girl, and how Tisha didn't really want to answer and was like, go on my IG live, and they laughed about it. Kimmy was like, we missed you at dinner. Destiny was like, I already know them cows. Why do I need to sit down with them, right? Kimmy's like, well, that was almost your mother-in-law, so I could have sworn you and Nell was cool. Kimmy, you was also almost Destiny's mother-in-law too, so don't throw shade when it's dark over your house. All right, let's keep that in mind. Talk about how Nell was like, y'all just really not that transparent. When folks ask y'all questions, y'all really just be blowing them off, which is facts. And Tisha's just like, well, if Nell want to know all this information, then we need to get all the tea on her and Chris, because I know he's a cheater. Why? This is why nobody likes you. Why do people need to tell you all of their business when you don't say anything about anything? Like, okay, y'all don't have infidelity in y'all relationship. Why is Marceau living at Black? Why is Marceau willing to sleep at a restaurant and not in the bed with his wife? You can't talk about that? We still want to know why he felt like it wasn't a big deal for him to wear his wedding ring. Like when people ask you questions and you just want to dance around it, that's not being transparent. I agree when Kimmy was like, when folks ask you questions, you need to be forthright with information, even if the information wasn't asked. Like, why can't you just answer stuff? And Tisha's just like, because I don't have to, because ain't nobody finna check me. I'm still gonna be on this show regardless. I've been here for 10 seasons, not saying anything about myself and just pointing out the fact that everybody else had infidelity in their relationship. Remember when I said that you was a side chick, Kimmy? I don't have to do that. I'm still mad that Chris said that Maurice and Marceau was telling folks to get scallywags to sign NDAs. I have bigger fish to fry of exploiting everybody else's story versus my own. Like, I don't have to tell anybody's business. I don't have to tell anybody my business because I'm too busy trying to get their business to tell. Duh. So the main three women who always is talking about people's relationships and marriages and children are like, maybe we should just stop talking about people's relationships, marriages, and children. And then Dreadful Destiny is like, yeah, because that's never been my thing. Wasn't you at the reunion saying that Mel and Martell was grooming you, and that Mel and Martell was married, and wasn't you saying that Mel and Martell was married and was sucking and in the limo with Tisha and Marcel and Kimmy and Maurice, and that all of them was swingers? That got to do with people's marriages and relationships, right? You're just gonna say Chris Fletcher was throwing rocks, so I'm gonna throw some back at him because their house easily breakable. At least they're in it together. Your husband's at Black and Kimmy's husband's at Credit One, knocking down. So even if their house is easily breakable, because we done seen all the problems that they have, y'all husband's not even at home. So people throwing rocks at y'all glass houses, gonna come cave in on y'all alone, because y'all husbands is somewhere else doing God knows what. Let's not do that. They talking about how people can apologize but still be doing the same things over and over again. Yes, y'all all have done that. That's how we are 10 seasons in, and we're still having the same conversations as season 1. Yes. And so Destiny brings up how she done said that to Martell, even though Destiny does not hold Martell accountable whatsoever. Tisha just walks away. And Destiny's like, so is that what we're going to do every time we talk about somebody in the group you don't like? Kimmy's just like, I guess so. Shut up, all of y'all, because Martell shouldn't even been on this season. Y'all, just like y'all tried to rally and gang up on Mel, y'all should have rallied and ganged up on Martell so he wouldn't even be here. We wouldn't even be talking about Martell had y'all held him accountable season 3. Y'all should have all ganged up and excommunicated Martell when he was saying Kimmy was a side chick. Hello? Kimmy basically tells Destiny, if you want to stay cool with us, you're going to have to stop hanging out with Martell. And Destiny's just like, actually, only way I am hanging out with y'all is because of Martell. How am I just going to cut off my friend like that? I cut off his ex-wife and she was the one giving me money. Why would I cut off Martell and I'm him? I can't do that. That's my ride on. Like, I'm not finna cut off my man like that, girl. What's you talking about? They bring up Lance, and Destiny says that she hasn't talked to Lance. She ran into him and he didn't make eye contact and he need to be a man and speak up and say something to her. Destiny, you are a grown woman. Why, the same way you went and called Nell Fletcher, why you just couldn't call Lance? Why you can't send Lance a text and be like, hey, can we sit down and have a conversation? Like, I'm trying to figure out why you want Lance to reach out to you when you can't reach out to him, but you can reach out to his mama. And you want his mama to be in the middle of y'all stuff. But then when Kimmy says you in the middle of Tisha and Martell, Destiny's like, no, because I'm an individual. Is not Nell an individual? Why is Nell being linked into y'all stuff just because that's his mama and that's your friend? But when it came to Nell actually asking y'all questions about what's going on, you just wanted to blow her off and say it's none of your business because we both grown. If you grown, why you can't call that man and say, hey, so you had a baby? Like, when he texts you Happy Thanksgiving and then you saw the baby post, why you ain't coming on the baby post and say y'all cute? Why you ain't send him a screenshot of the baby post and be like, y'all cute? Baby, new baby, hello, can we talk? Like, huh? Why is Lance having to reach out to you? So Kimmy and Tisha called Destiny out and say, Destiny, in all fairness, why are you so hung up on the fact that Lance had a baby on you and y'all wasn't even a couple at his mama vow renewal? And they're like, Destiny's like, that's because you had messed me up with my game because I was trying to sleep with 40 different people at once, and you told one of the 40 mom that I was making googly eyes at the stripper at the bachelorette party. And he's like, but you was though. Like, it wasn't me being messy, it was you doing it. You don't think Nell saw that? Like, what is you talking about? And so they go back and forth on whether Destiny was making googly eyes at the man or not. And Kimmy's like, Destiny, when we brought it up, you said, why does it matter? I'm single and I'm dating him. We're not boyfriend and girlfriend. I can make googly eyes if I want to make googly eyes. My eyes is always googly. Look how I be looking at Martell. Duh, like, I can do whatever I want to do. And so Kimmy's like, exactly, Destiny. That's what you said then. That's what you're saying now. Do you not see how Lance could perceive that and be like, well, if Destiny's dating, I could date and I could go back, spin the block. Unfortunately, I just knocked her up. Like, everybody's just like, Destiny, you do be flirting with all these men. You cannot sit here and flirt with all these men and then not think that the men aren't going to do the same thing with other women. You want to be single and have a roster and then get mad when people ask to get traded. You can't do that. You can't do that. So we're 5 episodes in and they've already started establishing the Fletchers versus the Scotts. Who is left is going to have to pick a side. Will Destiny side with the Scotts? Will Trish and Ken side with the Fletchers? Find out next time on Dragon Ball Z. So they start talking about the party and how they both wanted to ride the bull. And Trish is like, well, I've rode bulls before. You see Ken. How many times is Trish going to refer to Ken as a non-sentient being? She's chocolate drop, chocolate emoji, bull. Well, she did say black cowboy. Black cowboys are people, so that's like one. But it's kind of getting weird. They talk about how at the party, how Nell basically predicted that Tisha's drunk ass was going to be a drunk ass at that party and start doing the most. And lo and behold, she did. They also mentioned that at the store scene with Destiny, Kimmy, and Tisha, right? And how Tisha was all up in Chris Fletcher's face. And even Kimmy was like, you was all in that man face, Tisha. You kind of was doing the most. Back to Nell and Trish. So Nell and Trish is talking about it and how Tisha is a hypocrite. She always want to know your business, always trying to ask you questions that don't even have anything to do with you personally. It could have something to do with somebody connected to you. But when you ask Tisha a question, she's like, oh, well, I don't know what you're talking about. And people are always trying to destroy my marriage and be in my relationship. And I just wish people would just stop trying to destroy our marriage because it's just not fair to me and my husband. We don't have problems. He just don't live with me and doesn't wear his wedding ring. So I don't even know why people keep saying that he's cheating on me, because there's just no possible way that a man who doesn't wear his wedding ring and doesn't sleep at home with his wife is cheating on her, right? Now this is how you know Trish is gonna be another Stormy Destiny type, because when Nell accurately describes Tisha, Trish agrees with everything Nell said, but then backpedals in her confessional and says, I honestly don't really get that from Tisha because she's never gave me that energy. Maybe it just has to do with Tisha and Nell and whatever they had going on. And they referenced the birthday party from last season. Mind you, they is working overtime to not put Mel in anything. Like, I feel like they is chopping and screwing this whole season because Mel is so deeply ingrained in these people that they cannot talk about certain things without mentioning her. And so a lot of stuff just get chopped and screwed. Like when they did the scene of the birthday party, Mel was sitting right next to Nell. They went out of their way to show Stormy and not Melody, which is hilarious to me. So Nell mentions how Tisha was all up in Chris Fletcher's face and that ain't cool. And Trish agrees, like, yeah, she was in his face. She was doing a lot. She was doing the most. So you probably need to say something, because if she was doing that to my man, we would have had some words. I hate how everybody has to be the bigger person when it comes to those childish ass Scotts. Like, it's killing me that they saying all this stuff about everybody, doing all this stuff, and then that person has to be the bigger person to be like, okay, I'm sorry that I don't like you and you don't want to tell me your business, so I'll tell you everything I have going on in my life so you can feel comfortable enough with me to shade me. Nobody's finna do that. Nobody's finna do that. This is why nobody likes you. Your husband don't even like you. That's why he's staying at Black. Can we be more transparent on the fact that why Marcel be staying at Black? Or is that something that we just can't speak on because that's y'all marriage? It's called love and marriage. Talk about the marriages. Duh. You want to talk about everybody's infidelity in their marriage, but you don't want to talk about the fact that your husband don't live with you. So shout out to Jalen. The boy got him a lucrative job here in Huntsville. I don't even know why I say here in Huntsville, because I ain't in Huntsville, but whatever. luckily for him, he was able to get that. That way he doesn't have to move 17 hours away to Colorado for a pay cut. He said he wanted to do that job in Colorado, but it was the fact that it was so far and it was a pay cut that he wasn't really checking for. And so luckily for him, he was able to get that job in Huntsville. Kimmy and Jalen are talking about how Maurice, Marceau, and Jalen sat down the other day, and how Maurice still isn't getting the fact that he wasn't a present father figure in Jalen's life. It got really sad for me because Jalen was like, you know, I truly don't even know what fatherhood is. So maybe he was being a father to me. I don't know. From the descriptions, it's not giving Maurice was a father. It's giving Maurice was your mom's live-in boyfriend that was just telling you to take out the trash and being a dick to you for no reason. Jalen's like, maybe he was being a father, you know, it could have been that. And Kimmy's just like, I've had this conversation with Maurice. I've had it with Marceau. Me and Marceau and you are all on the same page that Maurice wasn't doing what he was supposed to do. And then in the confessional, she's like, Maurice maybe helped Jalen in his tough love situation. And it paid off because Jalen has a good head on his shoulders. He's a strong, independent man. But it could have been different back then. It could have been different now. And it better be different going forward. It better be different going forward. I know that's right, Kimmy. You better... Kimmy, if you roll over and take it one more time for a man who's treating your son like he's an insignificant ass hair, I have several words for you. And none of them are nice. Lance meets up with Chris Fletcher. Chris Fletcher comes by to Lance's construction company, and they're just touching bases, trying to see how each other's doing or whatever. And Lance mentions how, you know, dealing with this newborn baby is just a lot. It's something that he hasn't really done before by himself, right? And so he recalls how when they had that conversation with his mom, how she said she wanted to come by, stay with him for 2 nights out the week, maybe give him a little help or whatever. This was like he told her, maybe you should talk to dad about that first before, you know, that actually becomes a thing, right? And so he mentioned that to Chris. And Chris is just like, I don't really know how I would feel about that. How would you feel that your partner was gone 2 nights out of the week, right? And Lance is just like, yeah, I understand. I wouldn't really want that for myself either. So y'all just gonna have to talk that out. What struck me though was the fact that Chris Fletcher, who's been married to his wife for 30 some odd years, don't want to be away from his wife at night. He wants to be in the bed with her at night, right? Marceau don't do that. Marceau go to Black, go to the construction sites, come home to eat, shower, and then go back to Black to go to bed. So they talk about how Nell and Chris basically do everything for these children, and mention how last season they had a sit-down conversation with all of the kids, and that was the scene where the niece was crying in the kitchen because she ain't really have no family for real, and that's why like they look at her as a daughter. Chris is just like, you know, we tried to set boundaries then, and then both of the boys had babies, and so now those boundaries have been crossed. Honestly, both of Chris and Lance was like, nah, the boundaries went out the window at this point. And so they're just talking, going back and forth, not in a negative way, but just having a conversation about the fact that the boundaries do have to be reevaluated now because there are more people in the situation. Boundaries do have to be reevaluated now because there are more people in the situation. And so things just have to move differently, but there has to be a way for us to get our kids to be able to do for themselves because they are grown. Like their oldest child is Lance, and he's like 33 years old or whatever. Yeah, at some point y'all is gonna have to grow up. Like you can't be knocking down these women, getting these girls pregnant and having all these kids, and then up at your parents' house like, I need help, I need you. You ain't need them when you was knocking them girls down. You know what I'm saying? So at some point you are gonna have to grow up and you are gonna have to be an adult. Chris mentions that maybe Lance could reach out to Martell because Martell has his kids every other week, and he seems like he has a good time management schedule when he has them, and Lance agrees and is like, yeah, he does seem like he's doing pretty decent when it comes to when he has his kids and how he's able to do all these things. They both are in the same field of construction, and so it could be a possibility that Martell does have a good system going. And so Lance agrees that he will reach out to him, hopefully sooner rather than later, because at this point he needs to figure out what he can do to help himself. In his confessional, he agrees with his dad, and it's just like, you know, us as kids, our parents did so much for us, and now we are adults and we're still asking those things of our parents, which Chris had also said. And it gets to a point where you have to be able to help yourself, because if your parents is always doing this stuff for you, you're never going to be able to grow up fully, which is something that they both said. And it's funny because they both said it to each other in the scene, and then they both said it in the confessional. But I guess you always just echo what you say in the confessional sometimes, unless you're Trish. Have y'all ever been to PJ's Coffee? They're actually really good. Tisha is meeting Nell. She waddles in with her latex brown dress and her kinky straight. Nell sitting down with the red wig and a scarf over her head, already drinking her coffee or whatever. Peep though how Nell invited Tisha out for coffee instead of drinks, because she know Tisha get a little loose with them lips when it comes to that liquor. I like that they're finally sitting down, because I don't think the last sit down they had, was like last season when it was just the two of them one-on-one. So at this point, this should have been had like first, second episode, because all the stuff that they had brewing between them, of course, they're gonna make it suspenseful and not give us that till like now episode 5. But at the same time, they could have been squashed this like episode 3, this whole thing. And it's never gonna stop, because Tisha needs somebody else to go after. Who better than the person who names rhymes with my enemy, Nell? Of course. That's just a no-brainer, because Nell was Mel friend, so of course I'm gonna go after you because you was so close to her. Unless you want to be on my side and be team me, which you didn't do last season when it came to her, you'll never get that from me. Sorry, Destiny already fulfilled that position, and we have Stormy in waiting. Nell says Tisha was on 100 at the party, and Tisha is like,
I was not 100. I don't even know what you're talking about. I was not 100. I was not 100. What is you even talking about right now? Like, you is just way off base when it comes to that. But you want to try to feel feelings. You want to try to feel feelings of how you feel. First of all, I don't even like the way you're talking to me, because you're doing a little much.
it's giving Tisha had a drink before she got here. It's giving she just left Black with her husband, because that's where he always is. Had a couple drinks and was like,
okay, I'm ready. I can go meet Nell now. I'm ready. Let's get to it.
Tisha's like, since you want to go after me because I got in your man face, even though I don't remember that because I was drunk as hell and I can't even remember nothing from that night. Let's talk about the fact that this is the second time Chris Fletcher done said something negative about my husband. And Nell's like, well, what was the first thing that he done said about your husband? And Tisha's like, the Georgia thing, the Atlanta thing. You don't remember? Yeah, because your husband be cheating on you. And Nell's like, Tisha, here we go again, because we cleared that up years ago. Like, the Atlanta thing was like years ago, for real. It was like years ago. You still pressed at the fact that your husband was in Atlanta without you and you didn't know. And to prove that he was in Atlanta with somebody else. Remember when he was crying in the car? Was like really pressed over the fact that your husband was cheating on you, and Wanda was hyping you up and had you feeling all types of ways about your husband, and he had to like do a whole come to Jesus meeting with you, and you were crying in the car and was like, you know who I was in Atlanta with? Chris Fletcher. Y'all remember that? Y'all remember that episode? That was like, it's season 10. That was like season 8, season 7. So that was years ago, and you still pressed about the fact that your husband was in Atlanta and had you crying, going crazy, crashing out because you thought that he was there cheating, and then he just lied and said, no, I went to go meet Chris Fletcher. Y'all both live in Huntsville. Why did he have to go all the way to Atlanta to meet Chris Fletcher? That don't make sense to me. They're going back and forth, and Tisha's just like, you over here saying all this stuff, but your husband was in Atlanta with my husband cheating. So if my husband's a cheater, your husband's a cheater, because they was both in Atlanta together. And Nell's like, there's no possible way they was in Atlanta together, going to Atlanta together, because Chris went to Atlanta with me to get my titties done. You don't see him? Like, what are you talking about? You trying to go back and forth and gaslight me because You mad that I have valid reasons to feel some type of way about you, so you want to bring up old shit. Like I said in my last video, this show has consistently pissed me off at the end of every episode this entire season so far. Like, at the end of every episode, I legit get heated because it's always Tisha or Trisha, the two T's. They always doing something that's just gonna be like, bro, I know you not sitting here trying to make me not hear and see what I'm hearing and seeing. Like, you trying to go back and forth about this whole Atlanta thing. Your man was in Atlanta without you, Tisha. Your mama had you crashing out and you was in the car crying, and so he just said a name to make you feel comfortable and make you feel better. Are you mad at Nell because Marceau said that he met Chris Fletcher in Atlanta? Talking about Marceau said he had to meet Chris Fletcher, and so when Nell was looking for him, Chris had to take a picture and prove that he was with Marceau and he wasn't off doing anything crazy or wilding out. This is how you know Tisha came in that bitch drunk as fuck, because this bitch can't even remember what the fuck she just said. Like, you just said, I don't like the things that Chris said about my husband. Nell asked you what it was. You said the Atlanta thing and the NDA thing. Nell, even though it's Chris's stuff, Nell is trying to over-explain herself to get Tisha to understand this is why you feel that way about my husband, because your husband is the one who started all of this. And so Tisha gaslighted her, and it's like, well, it's not about who started it. It's about what he said, and I didn't like that. You don't think Nell didn't like the fact that Marceau was trying to use her husband as an excuse for cheating? You don't like the fact that people don't like that y'all say this stuff about their husbands, but they have to be okay with it. But the minute your husband, their husband be like, no, we wasn't together, we took a picture because she didn't know where her husband was, and her husband had to bring up somebody's name. Remember, like, what is you talking about, Tisha? She's trying to gaslight Nell and saying, well, I don't like the fact that you raising your voice at me right now. Now I can have a whole nother problem because you raising your voice at me in this coffee shop. And Nell is like, it's the shit I be talking about with Tisha, because how is you finna sit here and say I'm raising my voice and I haven't raised my voice once? You're the one whose voice is raising and lowering in octaves. Like, you're the one who is doing all this bouncing, hair flipping, this, like, you is ready for a fight. I know your ass can't fight, because if you could fight, you would have been fought Mel when your mama was finna get dragged by her and your husband was finna get dragged, and that's why his brother had to step in when it came to Martell, because Martell was finna handle Marceau, and so Maurice had to step in. That's how we know y'all can't fight, and that's why y'all be trying to start problems with people and then get people to lose their jobs, because y'all can't fight and y'all can't back up the stuff that y'all be saying about these folks. Y'all saying we want to leave the kids out of it, but your mama was the one calling Mel and Martell kids baldhead. Your mama was the one saying that Mel knew his baby wasn't by Martell, and kept saying, what about that baby? What about that baby? What about Wanda and nobody wants her around and she got excommunicated of the show? Like, she's just like, Nell, you over here getting loud and disrespectful, and I ain't got time for that, and I ain't got time for you. So she waddles her way out with that latex short ass brown dress and that kinky straight, and gets in her car and drives off. This girl gonna say, I ain't finna be doing all that with this woman up in here. This is where I have my kids' PTA meetings. First of all, school stuff should be at the school. You shouldn't be meeting nobody outside of school when it comes to school stuff. Second, if this is somewhere you come to go do your kids' PTA meetings, why did you come in here with that short ass latex dress that when you opened your legs in camera, we saw where all your kids came from? If this is where you go and do your PTA meetings, this girl gonna be like, I need some tequila for this conversation. It's giving you already had some. That's why you came in huffing and puffing and your anxiety was roughing, because you was doing the most when you first sat down, flipping your hair, adjusting your seat, trying to blah, 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 talking with your hands, getting mad because Nell is rightfully calling out that you was in her husband's face and you was doing too much. And so you want to bring up something from seasons ago that your husband did to them, and they corrected him and was like, nah, bro, you're not finna bring us into y'all business. And so you just want to get up and gaslight her and leave, and then be like, yeah, I thought we was finna have a conversation, but because you don't want to respect me, in my show, you can leave. Well, actually, I'll leave. And so she gets up with her short ass dress and goes. Bye. Like, I'm with Nell. We don't have to talk no more. Like, who are you? That was the end of the episode. We'll see what happens next in the next one. I'm your girl, AlleyBenz. Let me know what you think of the video in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe and share this video with everybody that you can, because I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers so I can go live on YouTube. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.